Now, the reproductive system is highly regulated by hormones. A variety of hormones in both males and females are responsible for regulating the production of gametes, maintaining fertility, and the expression of sex characteristics, both the primary sex characteristics present at birth and development of secondary sex characteristics around puberty. In both males and females, we see similar pathways. In the brain, the region known as the hypothalamus releases GnRH, or gonadotropic releasing hormone, which targets the anterior pituitary gland. The pituitary gland releases two different gonadotropic hormones, which are gonad targeting hormones, that then travel through the body to target either the ovaries in females or testes in males. The gonads themselves also produce sex hormones, which affect sex organs and characteristics, as well as gamete development. There are a number of different hormones we're going to ask you to know, including the source, meaning where do they come from, the target, what are they being sent to, and the action, what are they causing to happen. The first three are the ones from the brain. GnRH, or gonadotropin releasing hormone, comes from the hypothalamus. FSH and LH, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, come from the anterior pituitary gland. The next three are the sex hormones. Probably familiar with testosterone and estrogen as being the male and female hormones, although both males and females produce both testosterone and estrogen. Males produce testosterone in higher amounts and females produce estrogen in higher amounts. Progesterone is also a female hormone. And then there are another three hormones that are involved in pregnancy and birth. HCG, or the human chorionic gonadotropin hormone, oxytocin, and prolactin. If you look over here at the images of estrogen and testosterone, hopefully those look familiar to you if you think back to our very first unit talking about the different classes of biomolecules. Estrogen and testosterone are both lipids, and they are steroid hormones. So the ring structure should look familiar to you, and they both act in similar ways. They have similar targets, but as these little side groups, the differences there that cause estrogen to produce primarily female characteristics and the testosterone to produce primarily male characteristics. In your notes, you've got this chart to fill in for the male hormones. So in your textbook, page 442 to 443, you can fill in the chart below. And we'll talk a little bit about this flow chart, which represents the positive and negative control or feedback loops of the male reproductive hormones. So we can see here in the brain, the hypothalamus is what releases the GnRH, the gonadotropin releasing hormones, which stimulates the pituitary gland to release luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. Both of those stimulate the testes, which then increase production of sperm. They also increase the production of testosterone, which is responsible for the development and functioning of the male sex organs, as well as the development of the male secondary sex characteristics at puberty. When the LH and FSH target the testes and sperm production begins, we also have the seminiferous tubules and the interstitial cells producing hormones of their own that have a negative or inhibitory effect back on the pituitary and the hypothalamus. So they are actually reducing the secretions from the hypothalamus to keep this process in balance or a state of homeostasis. Now here we can see this diagram that shows where the hormones are being released and their actions. The reproductive and sex hormones are involved in a negative feedback loop to help maintain a constant production of sperm and testosterone. This is important for homeostasis of the reproductive system. We know that testosterone is responsible for the development and function of the male sex organs, as well as the development of the male secondary sex characteristics at puberty. Things like muscle development, a deeper voice, and the facial and body hair that we associate with the changes a male will go through in their teenage years. We can see that the hypothalamus of the brain is what releases that gonadotropin releasing hormone. That travels to the pituitary gland, where it sends a signal for the pituitary gland, specifically the anterior pituitary gland, to release the luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating hormone. Both of those stimulate the testes. The FSH stimulates the testes to begin sperm production. The seminiferous tubules produce the sperm, but they also produce another hormone called inhibin. Inhibin inhibits the release of more hormones from the pituitary and the hypothalamus. So it actually sends a signal saying, we're working right now, stop telling us to keep working. So there is a negative feedback loop right there. When seminiferous tubules are not producing sperm, that inhibin production also drops. And then the brain again picks up that signal saying, hey, time to start making more sperm. The luteinizing hormone stimulates the testes to start producing testosterone. Testosterone has an effect on the sex organs and sex characteristics, but it also has an inhibitory or a negative feedback effect on the pituitary and the hypothalamus. And so as that testosterone is being produced, it is sending the signal to the brain saying, hey, slow down your signals. So we can see that here in this little flow chart here. The hypothalamus releases GnRH, the gonadotropin releasing hormone, and that's a positive action. It says make something or do something. It says to the pituitary, it's time to release your gonadotropic hormones, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Those also are positive actions. They say to the testes or testicles, it's time to start producing sperm and also the hormone testosterone. Now, testosterone is where we have that inhibitory effect. Alongside that, we also have inhibin, which also has an inhibitory effect on both the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland.